Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are with the founder and CEO of the Spa Business Coach. And yeah, she's here. Erin MacNeil joining us again today to talk more about her coaching for med spas and aesthetic practice owners. And she's teaching them how to run their business and increase profitability, and also have an amazing detailed digital program as well, virtually in-person coaching as well, helping with leadership, financials, operations, you name it, she does it. Erin, welcome back today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Jill. How about yourself?
Fantastic. It's a beautiful hot day in New York. How are things in Toronto?
The exact same, and I'm loving every moment of it.
Me too. People are complaining the heat, the heat. I'm like, and then we're going to complain the cold, the cold. So let's just enjoy it while we can. Now,
100%.
good. Well, pleasure to have you back. If a new timers out there, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do specifically. And of course, tell us the website to start.
For sure. So you can reach us at www.thespabusinesscoach.com or on all the socials at the Spa Business Coach. And so we do focused business coaching for aesthetic practices, for med spas. If you're looking to create more profitability, grow your revenue, grow your team, expand your business. So we focus in on numbers and financials, operations, and leadership.
Perfect. Well, it's a pleasure to have you back here to talk today about all the work you're doing and how, we've talked about mindset shifts. We talked about how you're helping your clients, increase profitability, especially during the slower months like the summer. We talked about that. And what did you want to talk about today, mid-year something? What was it?
Mission, vision, and values. So this is a perfect time with our client base. We do this exercise in January. As you kick off a new year, you want to make sure that you have a really clear direction, right? And so now that we're halfway through the year, right? We're just about 6 months complete.
Oh, yeah.
And
Happy
so
first day
we,
of summer, right? It is.
right? Exactly. And it's a full moon. But we do this practice with our clients to remind them and kind of bring them back to where they were at in January and what they were setting out to do. And so I encourage a lot of businesses halfway through the year, are you where you want to be? And if not, maybe it's time to kind of go back to baseline and figure out, okay, are we really living and fulfilling our vision and our mission? Or did we get sidetracked this year? Did we get knocked off course? And or if you're just starting out and you're feeling overwhelmed and you don't really know where to start. So your mission and your vision really is that thing that is your North Star. If you're feeling lost and you're looking for a direction, well, that is what's going to help you define it. So sometimes mid-year going back and really taking a look at, are we doing what we said we were going to do, and are we really living
Yep.
our values every day? So we do this exercise mid-year. So I wanted to, dig in there today because I think it's a really great time that if you are experiencing a bit of a slowdown, then that means you've got some extra time to do a bit of homework inside the business and with your teams.
All right. Break it down for us. What do you do specifically? How do you start off getting that mission, vision, and down on paper? You got to talk about it, obviously.
Yeah, really great point. So a lot of people they get stuck in writing the mission and the vision. And I like my pro tip for anyone is keep it extremely simple. And the reason why is because if you keep your vision and your mission statements very simple and short, very concise, what that means is it's actually easier for your team to remember what is the vision and the mission of this company that I work with. Because if it's easy to remember, it will be easy to put into practice. So don't get overwhelmed in writing this long paragraph about, how your business is going to change the world. It's really like if you can keep it short and simple and really figure out the crux of why is my business here? What are we really here to do? Who are we here to serve, and how are we going to do that? So those are the, major highlights there is, don't spend too much time on it, but it does need to move you in a sense and move the people on your team in a sense that they really feel connected to what you've written.
Then what's the next phase in the process? How does it work after you're getting the mission vision, not just writing it down, but how do you start what's the word? Enacting and enabling, taking action with,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. So then, once a lot of the time, this exercise is done by the owner or the founder of the business. I encourage any business to include your current team members, because if you yourself is not the person on the front lines really seeing the clients or taking in the business, you want to understand what it's like for them and make them a part of it. Also, when they're a part of it, they're going to feel more connected to it, which means they're going to live, breathe, eat, sleep, and drink it. So you want to do that together. But I always, after it's defined, then we want to really enter that into our company handbook or any kind of handbook that you have as part of your training, and really ingraining folks into your culture. And then have a team meeting about it so that you can really unpack why you've chosen the statements that you've chosen and what it's all about. Because for the most part, I would say people now, they love to be connected with a deeper why. As humans, we want to know that what we're doing here is beyond just us.
Mm.
And when we look at the landscape of employment, I would say, and as a leader for a long time, it's really shifted in the sense that, yes, people want to have a fair market value pay for their position, but they also want a sense of purpose and a sense of impact. And so that's what your vision, mission, and value statement will do. And bringing them in, making them a part of it, but also reminding them, refreshing their memory, having meetings around, the deeper sense of why we do what we do, keeps them connected to your original vision and mission. And that makes the employees part of the whole thing as well.
Got it. I got it. Now, by the way, hold on. For those, new timers here, the work that you're doing, I know you're based out of Toronto. We've established that, but you're working with clients all over and in the same field of aesthetics and spas. But let me just ask, does it change from location to location, the vision and the mission? Or it's kind of the same for everywhere?
Yeah, so I would say on a high level, it really doesn't matter what country you live in. You want to have that North Star that is going to direct your company. And as your company grows and changes, your vision and mission might change as well, right? If you think about Lamborghini, they didn't start off as a car manufacturer. They started off as making tractors, I believe. Is it tractors or something like that? Where that is far from what they manufacture today. So give yourself room to expand on that as you grow. But regardless of where you're located, you really need that to continue to keep you focused and keep you in alignment with what you're really doing.
Yeah.
Uh, I would say the only difference is really the stage of business that you're at. It will
Mm-hmm.
shift as you
Okay.
grow and you change. So to keep
Don't we
an
all?
open mind, that it's more like, yeah, it's like a working document, right? So when I say it's a working document, I mean it's always in progress. So leave yourself some room to know that just because what you've written down the first time is not going to be what you write down the last time, right? So where you start isn't where you finish. And I think about companies like, again, using something that everybody knows, Apple. And then it's such a deep, impactful vision and mission. And when you think about the founding uh, owner, Steve Jobs, you can still feel his presence. And you still feel the presence of that mission and that vision every time they launch a new product. And so that's why it's so important to write down, because if you really want your team to have longevity with your business, you want them to be
Mm-hmm.
lifelong employees with you and help you grow. This is the thing that's going to tie them to their work. Not just that, they're getting a good fair wage, but that they have a very deep, impactful meaning.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And let's remind everyone how we can contact you, please.
Oh, for sure. You can reach me on all the socials at the Spa Business Coach on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Perfect. And what other things, as far as values, mission, vision, should we be focused on? And what other advice on this topic did you want to share with the, spa owners out there, estheticians and aesthetics that are listening that, hey, middle of the road, middle of the year here, time to get moving.
Yeah, that's bringing values.
You're breaking up
I've
just a
I've
little
worked
bit.
for a few different companies over the years. Oh,
Yeah,
apologies. Can
you're
you hear me
frozen. It's
now?
okay. Yeah, you're just frozen. You're a little sketchy. I don't know if I look like that on your end.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me now.
I hear you.
Let me just. Okay, wonderful. Uh, so when we think about values versus policy, you want to have both. You want to have policy in your company handbook so that your team understands where the boundaries are with certain things. But when you outline the values of the company, this gives empowerment and the freedom of choice for your employees to make the right decision based on values.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of the time that places of employment, they put a lot of focus in on, well, that's policy, right? Well, I can't help you out there because the policy is no refunds, or the policy is if you're late, we're charging you, or those kinds of things. And when you think about longevity in any uh, business, you want to think about what is the value system that we could implement that allows our clients to feel valued, right? So if you have a value that says our company value is we would like the opportunity to delight every customer
Yeah.
versus a policy that says no refunds. So if someone is requesting a refund, you could, be policy driven, or you could be values driven. And if the value is looking for the opportunity to delight, that person maybe needs a bit of service recovery, but we are going to do our best to delight them versus just cold stone saying, nope, we don't do refunds, and then them having a bad taste in their mouth about your business. And so I try to highlight this with clients of ours that, working in aesthetics, yes, there are definite policies you need to have because it's a medical industry. So you have to be compliant. However, when you think about outlining some of those values, you really want to pass them along to your team members that then pass them along to the client experience. So
Wow.
outlining values is a really great one.
Got it. Thank you for that. And what else did you want to make sure, benefits our listeners and people out there in the business? If you're owning a spa, owning a aesthetic center, and again, a lot of your clientele is in Canada, but you're worldwide.
Yes. Actually, a lot of our clients are in the US. So,
Yay! Any in
yes,
New
well,
York by
the
any
US is so
chance?
big. I'd have to look in our database who's enlisted in the program right now, but all over the United States, all over Canada. Um, but the other thing I wanted to mention, kind of on that same thought around vision, mission, and values, is really, again, we're kind of focused on we're in the summer months, we're in the mid-year, and this is also a great time for a survey and a survey of your team. So I know a lot of the time at the end of the year, there would be maybe an end of year survey where in a corporate environment, which I came from originally, you would get an associate engagement survey and they would ask you different questions about your satisfaction of employment and the various departments and things like that.
Yep.
And so one thing I noticed that we don't do enough in smaller businesses is do that same practice to really get
Okay.
some answers and some feedback from our team to give us as leaders or owners some feedback about how
Right.
we're doing, right? And when you think about mid-year, we're actually entering into Q3 next month and Q4, which is the biggest money maker all year long. And so it's really good to get some feedback right now from your team if your leadership is slipping, or if maybe they need more support, or maybe they need more training. And if you don't necessarily have an environment that allows you guys to openly communicate regularly to get that feedback, it might be also a really great time of year to set up an engagement survey with your team to get some. And I always like to do it anonymously because as a leader, you want to look for
Um,
trends and answers. As opposed to knowing that someone, it allows them to maybe open up a bit more and tell the truth. Rather, if it's not anonymous, people will think, oh, well, if
yes.
I tell the truth, maybe I'll be in trouble. So I always think doing it anonymously and having some kind of survey on your leadership. How are you doing as a leader? How are you
Mm-hmm.
doing running the operation? How do they feel that they are supported? Maybe you just do from 1 to 10, how supported do you feel? And things like that, that as you create your strategy and you start thinking about Q3 and Q4, if you don't get that feedback, you could be having a missed opportunity here to really turn things around for your business and for your team. Where what we know to be true is if you don't do that, what we do is leave money on the table. And we don't want to do that in business.
And clearly you seem like you know what you're talking about. Like this has happened before. Could you share like a
Yeah.
story or two without using their names? Like what's happened? I could see it in your face.
So for me, it's my personal story is I received an engagement survey from my team years ago when I was a newer leader. And I thought, as the operator, and I was the director, and I thought I was crushing it, right? Because my goal that year was to make sure that the business was profitable. And so all the numbers were checking the boxes, and they were the biggest numbers that I'd ever done and were historic for that location. And it turns out my entire team hated me. So through that survey, they had said, you're not approachable, you're not very open, you're kind of like a bull in a china shop. And so
Wow.
without that, yeah, without that feedback, I would have never, one, became a better leader, but two, when I learned after getting that feedback, I had to lean in and figure out, okay, whatever I'm doing now is getting a certain type of result what my boss is happy with. But what about my team? If everyone quits on me, there will be no results at all. And so I really started to lean into my personal leadership. How am I going to grow myself as a leader and really
Yeah.
show up for these folks? And I really got into service leadership. And that's the biggest difference was I then really leaned into the leadership style of service. And when I did that, I actually ended up the next year doubling the profits. We doubled our revenue and it was much more effortless. And then after that, I had 100% retention. Like going forward throughout the rest of my career, I started to have 100% retention of
Yeah.
my employees. So my lesson was even though some of the indicators of success were there, I relied too heavily just on a couple things as indicators of success, and I didn't really listen to my team at all. Because in my mind, I was in charge and I was the boss. And because of that, I had to know all the answers. Therefore, I was never seeking other opinions or seeking, asking questions from my team. So that was a big slice of humble pie that I received, and it really shifted the way that I started to lead. And it's literally the thing that changed the trajectory. I think if I hadn't learned how to become more of a service leader, I really wouldn't have been successful.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing that. And that's a beautiful story because, and not everybody would share a story like that because it feels like it puts me in a poor light. No, it made you grow. It made you change and realize, okay, I have to change a little. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful. And clearly, look how
Yeah,
you're doing now. So, oh my gosh, I love that. It's never easy. I've gotten negative feedback too from bosses. And so it's hard to walk. I know how it feels, but then, you get a little upset at first, and then it's like, okay, you're right, maybe. And then you're looking back, you're like, wow, okay, I'm glad. I appreciate the honesty. I love honesty is always the best policy, even if it's
100%.
hurtful, even if it's hurtful, right?
Well, and I think it's on you to process. And if you assume that all feedback will be hurtful or that's the narrative in your
Yeah.
mind, you miss the lesson. You miss the opportunity to do better. And I would say most of the time when you're getting feedback, it's usually coming from someone who really sees your potential and knows that, hey, if you make a couple little tweaks or go a little bit more in this direction, you're actually going to prosper or thrive even more. But sometimes, as you mentioned, it hurts your ego because you think you're soaring and doing great things, and then you get feedback that isn't so nice. And it's really hard to hear that you're not as great as you think you are sometimes. But those are the things that really challenge us and change you and will bring out even more of your potential. So if anyone's listening where you're like, oh, geez, I'm nervous to get feedback, it's a bit nerve-wracking, but I think if you're open to the process, you'd be surprised how much good it will do for you and how much it will help you grow.
Got it. Well, thank you for that. We still have plenty of time left to chat. We got another 7 minutes here. Don't want to waste our time. We're on a roll here, Erin. What other things do you want to make it clear to your listeners about what we should be doing?
Well, talking about leadership, this is a big one, especially in beauty and aesthetics, because a lot of the owners that we work with anyway, a lot of the owners are also the lead provider, but more importantly, they've never actually been a leader before.
Okay.
They've never led a team. They've never run a business, which means leadership requires a specific skill set. It's not, when people say, oh, you're a natural born leader, there are some characteristics that help you become maybe a take charge kind of person. But being a leader requires a lot of vulnerability. It requires a lot of courage, a lot of not knowing, and a lot of openness and transparency around that and saying, hey, I'm the owner or I'm the leader, but I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And just saying that out loud or giving yourself the permission to be okay with the fact that you might be a fantastic technician or an amazing aesthetic provider, but it might be your first time running a business or running a team. And it's okay to not have the answers. But here's where you have the opportunity to start seeking a skill set that you need. And I've seen business owners who have really tried to just make it work, which is more like my way or the highway kind of leadership, where those people are deemed as bosses, right? So there's
Yeah.
a big difference between being a boss and then you're actually being a boss. And so I know
Hmm.
it's like kind of trendy to think of yourself as like a boss babe or, a boss lady or what have you, right? Which is fun and things like that. But in a real life setting, when you're running a team, if you take the attitude that you know everything and no one can tell you different, I imagine it's going to be hard to grow and it's going to be hard to keep employees. And so, if you've noticed that you have a high turnover rate of employees or that you're not having a lot of productivity or like the optimal productivity from your team, this is your first indicator that the problem might be you, that
Yeah.
you might not be the best leader. You might be performing more like a boss. And so, if you were to Google boss versus leader, you'll see these images pop up where the boss says go and the leader says let's go. And so it's a big
Hmm.
difference, right? Because the leader is really helping guide you and wants to bring you along with them versus the boss is more of the do as I say, not as I do, which for
Got
most
it.
of us, it's very difficult to respect, right? And if you don't have respect, which is usually the baseline for working relationships, the rest, I don't even have to say, right? It just won't come because you won't get the best out of that person if they don't respect you or if they don't like coming to work because it's miserable, those kinds of things. So these are little tiny red flag indicators that maybe you're being more of a boss than a leader. And although the term sounds empowering, the reality of running a business and running a team is that you really want to be a leader. You want people, because when you think about the definition of a leader, that's someone chose to follow you. It was by choice, not by force. And that's the biggest difference between a boss and a leader is someone is just forced to follow a boss because, they don't want to lose their job
Yeah.
versus a leader means that people actually decided, hey, I like what you're doing here. I like the way you do it, how you do it, and I want to follow in your footsteps. So just a couple little red flag indicators if you're having a difficult time with your team. And again, it's the middle of the summer coming up, right? And you'll have time to do training. You'll have time to refresh some of your vision, your mission, your values. You'll have time to refresh and maybe do some one-on-one team meetings where you can find out a little bit more and get some feedback for your own growth and for the growth of the business. Because if you're not growing, how can you expect your business to grow?
True. And I know two of your quotes we talked about one a while ago. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And then you said, when you resist reality, you suffer. That's by that author, Byron Katie. I mean, just got to look at it that
Yeah.
way. It's like, wow, yeah, we need to get out there and do, and try our best and be our best. And I just feel that the more you learn, and we all make mistakes, right? So if we're wrong, we're right. It's
Yes.
okay. We can learn from that and redo. And yeah, let's do it. We still have choices. We still have life. And while we're alive, let's live our best life and let's make the best difference and work as hard as we can and create the best business that's possible. But not everybody knows. That's why we need a coach like you. And tell us again, some of your services.
For sure. So we do virtual coaching. We've got an online digital program. The most important thing about the program isn't just the lessons that you learn, but you actually become part of a closed community where in real time we do live and learns every week. Myself, I host live and learns. So we do things on top of the access to the lessons and the digital program that you already have. And we try to do that and keep it fun. And we'll have guest speakers in. But also we have a private community where you can ask questions in real time. So some of when you're looking for a coach, you really want somebody who is available to ask your questions and not only ask you questions when the time
Yeah.
is right for the coach, right? And so that's why for us, support is a big thing. So having a community of other business owners that are like-minded, doing the same as you, some are ahead, some are just learning. And then you've also got a community where you can tap into and ask questions, not just from me as a coach or my team, but other business owners who are living, breathing exactly what you're trying to do as well. So digitally, that's our number one signature program. We do some in-person coaching. So I would say early next year, we're looking to do some in live trainings and workshops.
Got it. Well, thank you. And how can we reach you?
Oh, absolutely. You could find us on all the socials at the Spa Business Coach, or you can apply to work with us through the website at www.thespabusinesscoach.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you back and looking forward to the next
Always.
time we connect. You have a great day, okay?
You too, Jill. Take care.
Thanks so much. And to all of our listeners, please stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's